The council chamber stretched wider than most human cities. Representatives from 47 species sat in their designated zones, each environment controlled for their specific needs. Water chambers for the aquatic delphins, heat lamps for the cold-blooded saurics, gravity fields adjusted by the second. Counselor Vextar stood at the speaking platform. His scales shimmered purple, a sign of agitation among his kind. Behind him, a holographic display showed footage that made several council members shift uncomfortably in their seats. "This incident occurred 3 days ago," Vextar said. His translator rendered his hissing speech into standard galactic. The Kryloth Consortium established a legal blockade around the mining zone. All traffic was stopped for inspection. Standard procedure. The hologram showed 3 Kryloth warships, each twice the size of the vessel approaching them. The smaller ship bore markings that several counselors now recognized with a mixture of fear and frustration. Human characters. Earth registry. The human vessel was ordered to stop, Vextar continued. They refused. Ambassador Hannah Park sat in Earth's modest delegation area. She was a small woman by human standards, barely reaching 5.5 feet. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple style. She wore a plain gray suit. Nothing about her appearance suggested threat. The council had learned that meant nothing with humans. The hologram continued playing. The human ship, a cargo freighter called the Rising Phoenix, accelerated toward the blockade instead of stopping. "Surely they stopped when warning shots were fired?" asked Counselor Methrin, her translucent body wobbling with concern. "They did not," Vextar said flatly. The recording showed energy beams streaking past the Rising Phoenix. The freighter's engines flared brighter. It moved faster. Captain Junho Kim stood on his ship's bridge 3 days ago, watching the Kryloth warships grow larger on his screens. His crew of 15 looked to him. Most were young. 2 were on their first deep space run. "Captain, they're charging weapons," his scanner officer reported. Her name was Yuri, and her voice stayed steady despite her shaking hands. "Noted," Junho said. He was 42, with graying hair and the kind of calm expression that came from 20 years hauling cargo across dangerous space. "Continue on course." "Sir, those are military vessels." "We're a cargo ship." "We're a human cargo ship," Junho corrected. "There's a difference." Back in the council chamber, the hologram showed what happened next. The Kryloth ships opened fire with their main weapons, not warning shots. "Kill shots?" Several counselors gasped. A few looked away. Ambassador Hannah watched without expression. The Rising Phoenix's shields flared bright blue, absorbing the initial barrage. Then something happened that made even Vexitar's scales pale to a sick yellow-white. The cargo ship fought back. Bay doors along the Phoenix's hull opened. Cargo containers ejected into space, dozens of them, each the size of a small house. They didn't just drift. They accelerated, pushed by precisely timed thruster burns. "They weaponized their cargo?" someone whispered. The containers slammed into the Kryloth ships at incredible speed. Pure kinetic energy. No explosives needed. Simple mass times velocity. Physics didn't care if you were a warship or a freight hauler. The first Kryloth vessel's shields collapsed. The second took a container directly to its engine section. "And the third ship?" Counselor Methrin asked quietly. Vextar's claws scraped against his podium. The humans hacked its navigation system. The ship's own computers locked the crew out and sent it drifting into the system's asteroid belt. The council chamber erupted in multiple languages. Clicks, whistles, hums, and roars filled the air. "Order," the Supreme Arbiter called. The massive crystalline being's voice cut through the chaos. "Ambassador Park, Earth's response?" Hannah stood. She moved to the speaking platform with unhurried steps. When she spoke, her voice was soft. That somehow made it worse. "The Kryloth Consortium's blockade was illegal," she said simply. "They were trying to extort protection payments from vessels passing through neutral space. Captain Kim's ship was carrying medical supplies to a colony suffering from red fever. He refused to pay a bribe or accept delays that would cost lives. He destroyed 2 warships," Vextar roared. "Disabled a third. With a cargo vessel." "Yes," Hannah agreed. "Is Earth being accused of a crime? Because from where I sit, Captain Kim defended himself against illegal aggression. He showed remarkable restraint. He could have disabled all 3 ships. Instead, he only neutralized the immediate threats and continued his mission. The medical supplies arrived on time. 70,000 colonists didn't die of fever. Restraint?" Vextar's scales flushed deep crimson now. "You call this restraint?" "I do," Hannah said. She tapped her console. A new image appeared. The council fell silent. It showed the rising Phoenix's actual weapons. Hidden under those innocent-looking cargo bays were enough missiles, railguns, and point defense systems to outfit a military destroyer. And that was just what the scans could detect. Captain Kim's ship is registered as a civilian cargo hauler, Hana continued. And it is. It hauls cargo. It's just that in human space we learned a long time ago that the galaxy isn't always safe, so our civilians take precautions. This is more than precautions, Methrin said. Your merchant ships are more heavily armed than most species' military vessels. Yes, Hana said again. That simple agreement somehow sounded like a threat. Should we apologize for refusing to be victims? The Supreme Arbiter's crystalline structure pulsed with light. The Council must address this. Humanity has been in galactic space for only 50 of your years. In that time, there have been 173 incidents. Your species represents 0.03% of galactic population, but accounts for 42% of all conflict reports. Defended against, Hana corrected. We didn't start 173 fights. We finished them. Junho Kim drank coffee on his bridge watching stars stream past. His crew was celebrating their successful delivery. Yuri approached him, still looking nervous. Captain, the Council is debating sanctions against Earth, she said. I just heard the transmission. They debate a lot, Junho said. He sipped his coffee. Let me tell you something about humans, Yuri. We came from a world that tried to kill us every day. Weather that could freeze or burn. Animals that hunted us, diseases, natural disasters. We survived because we got stubborn. We don't quit. We don't surrender. And we protect our own. The other species think we're dangerous. We are dangerous, Junho said calmly. That's not a bad thing. Dangerous doesn't mean evil. It means capable. It means nobody pushes us around. Back at the Council, Ambassador Hana prepared to leave. Vextar blocked her path. Your species terrifies the galaxy, he said quietly. You realize this, yes? Your merchants fight like warriors. Your civilians jury-rig weapons from mining equipment. You take offense at the smallest slight and respond with overwhelming force. Then perhaps the galaxy should stop slighting us, Hana replied. She met his eyes without fear. We didn't ask to be underestimated. We didn't ask to be tested. We're traders, explorers, and builders. We wanted to join the galactic community peacefully. But, Vextar prompted. But we refused to be prey, Hana finished. She stepped around him, then paused. Counselor, let me give you some advice. What you've seen so far? Our merchants, our civilians, our corporate security. Those are our peaceful people. The ones who chose commerce over conflict. Are you threatening this council? No, Hana said. The coldness in her voice made Vextar's blood run even colder. I'm warning you. You've only met humans who want to do business. You've never met the humans who are trained to do violence. You've never encountered our soldiers, our special forces, our warriors. And if the galaxy has any wisdom at all, you'll make very sure you never do. She walked away, leaving Vextar standing alone, above Earth, in a facility that didn't officially exist. Major Suman Choi read the incident report about the rising Phoenix. She smiled slightly. Captain Kim had done well. Creative, effective, proportional. Her team was running training exercises. Real warriors preparing for threats the merchants would never face. She watched them work and hoped the galaxy would be smart, but she knew better than to count on hope. So she kept training, kept preparing, just in case. The galaxy was about to learn the difference between humans who carried cargo and humans who carried guns. The colony on Haven 7 went silent on a Tuesday morning, Galactic Standard Time. The last transmission was routine. Weather reports, crop yields, a child's birthday party scheduled for the weekend. Then nothing. The Galactic Monitoring Network flagged it after 6 hours. Communications failures happened. But Haven 7 was a human colony. Humans were paranoid about backups. They had 7 different comm systems. All 7 going dark simultaneously meant something bad. By Wednesday, 2 more colonies stopped transmitting. Meridian Station and New Busan. Same pattern. Everything normal, then silence. The Vraxian Empire took credit on Thursday. Commander Rexus of the Vraxian Third Fleet broadcast his victory across multiple channels. His species were large reptilian beings standing nearly 8 feet tall, with armored hide that could stop small arms fire. They'd been a military power for 3 centuries. The human colonies of Haven 7, Meridian Station, and New Busan have fallen to Vraxian might, Rexus announced. His translator couldn't quite hide the satisfaction in his growling voice. We have taken prisoners. We have claimed territory. Let this serve as warning to all humans. Your numbers are few. Your territory is scattered. You are weak. Galactic response was mixed. Some species expressed concern. Others quietly approved. Humanity had made many nervous. Seeing them taken down a notch felt almost reassuring. Earth's response was strange. No outrage. No threats. No military mobilization that intelligence could detect. Ambassador Hana simply requested coordinates for the 3 colonies. She transmitted them to an encrypted channel. Then she went back to her daily schedule. The galaxy expected war. Instead, they got silence. Major Suman Choi received the coordinates in her quarters. She was reading a book, something ancient by human standards, printed on actual paper. The message appeared on her secure tablet. She read it twice, closed her book carefully, and called her team. Ghost unit assembled in 15 minutes. 8 operators. Though most intelligence agencies believed the unit didn't exist at all, official records listed them as military advisors stationed at various embassies. Their real purpose was something else entirely. Lieutenant Hyun Kang arrived first. He was shorter than most soldiers, with a lean build that made him look almost fragile. His specialty was demolitions, but not the obvious kind. Hyun made explosions look like accidents. Sergeant Nari Song came next. She was 28 and could have been anyone's neighbor. Plain face, average height. The kind of person you'd forget 5 minutes after meeting. That was her greatest weapon. Nari could infiltrate anywhere because people simply didn't notice her. Corporal Taiyang Shin followed. He served as their medic, but his real value was technical operations. Give Taiyang 30 seconds with any computer system and he'd own it. The others filed in, each one carefully selected. Each one trained for years in skills the galaxy didn't know humans possessed. 3 colonies, Suman said without preamble. Vraxian occupation forces. Unknown number of civilian prisoners. Our mission is intelligence gathering first. Rescue if possible. Questions? Rules of engagement? Hyun asked. Don't be seen. Don't be detected. And Hyun? Suman met his eyes. No international incidents. If something explodes, it better look like their fault. Hyun grinned. When have I ever caused an international incident? Last month, Nari said dryly. The Koleth station. That was a gas leak. I filed a report. You caused the gas leak. Prove it, Hyun said, still grinning. Suman cut off the banter. We deploy in 2 hours. Standard insertion. Nari, you're going in first. 3 days advance. Think you can survive in Vraxian territory that long? I've survived worse, Nari said she had. Her last solo mission lasted 11 days inside enemy infrastructure. She'd lived in ventilation ducts and maintenance crawlways, learning patrol patterns, security protocols, and weak points. The ghost unit deployed that night. No announcement. No fanfare. They simply ceased to exist in official records and reappeared as routine embassy staff transfers on various planets. Commander Rexus was confident. His forces occupied 3 human colonies, nearly 600 humans captured total. Useful hostages. He'd expected desperate rescue attempts. Military strikes. Negotiation requests. Instead, things started going wrong. Small things at first. A supply transport suffered engine failure. A guard post reported power fluctuations. The main communications array developed an intermittent fault that technicians couldn't trace. Equipment malfunctions, Rexus told his officers. Human colonies are poorly maintained. Increase patrols and keep the prisoners secured. But the malfunctions got worse, and stranger soldiers started vanishing. Not all at once. 1 per night, then 2. They'd be on patrol, in contact with their squad, and then just gone. No signs of struggle, no bodies. No evidence. Deserters, Rexus insisted, but he didn't sound certain. At Meridian Station, Nari moved through ventilation shafts that the Vraxians assumed were too small for any being to navigate. They were right for Vraxian anatomy. Human bodies were more flexible. She'd been inside the station for 73 hours. She knew every patrol route, every guard rotation, every blind spot in their sensor coverage. She'd mapped the entire facility without being seen once. Hyun arrived with the second wave. He came in with a supply delivery, hiding in a cargo container that sensors read as machine parts. Once inside, he didn't head for the Vraxian security. Too obvious. Instead, he went to life support. Over the next 48 hours, small charges were placed throughout Meridian Station's infrastructure. Not bombs. Nothing that would explode. Instead, they were designed to create cascading failures. A cooling system would break down. That would cause generators to overheat. That would trigger automatic shutdowns. Each failure looking like poor maintenance or equipment stress. Taeyang worked from orbit, having infiltrated a Vraxian communications relay. He introduced subtle errors into their computer systems. Patrol schedules that conflicted. Supply orders that got misrouted. Security camera footage that developed glitches at precise moments. The Vraxians grew paranoid. Their soldiers saw threats everywhere. Shadows became enemies. Strange sounds became infiltrators. They started shooting at nothing, fighting each other in confused firefights. At Haven 7, something even stranger happened. Vraxian soldiers reported ghosts, figures that moved too fast to track. Sounds where there should be silence. Equipment that malfunctioned when approached. Admiral Carvex of the Vraxian home fleet received reports and didn't believe them. Your soldiers are imagining things. Humans are not supernatural beings. Increased discipline. Then his own ship experienced problems. They were in Vraxian space. Safe territory. But life support started failing in random sections. Doors locked that should be open. Gravity fluctuated. The Admiral's personal quarters lost atmosphere, forcing him to evacuate in the middle of his sleep cycle. Engineering teams found nothing wrong. No sabotage, no infiltrators, just impossible malfunctions. The Admiral broadcast an emergency message. His voice was steady, but his eyes showed fear. There is something aboard my ship. Something that should not be possible. They are not human. Nothing human moves like this. Nothing human. The transmission cut off. The flagship's life support failed completely. Emergency pods launched automatically, saving most of the crew. The ship itself went dark, drifting in space like a dead thing. Ghost Unit never claimed responsibility. They didn't need to. The message was clear. At New Busan, Sergeant Min Ji-yu lay perfectly still on a rooftop 2 kilometers from the Vraxian command center. She'd been in position for 16 hours. Her rifle was zeroed. Her breathing was controlled. She watched through her scope as confusion spread through enemy ranks. She wasn't there to shoot. Not yet. She was there to watch, to learn, to gather intelligence. But if needed, she could put a round through any target in that compound from 2 kilometers away. In high wind, in darkness, through glass. The Vraxians didn't know she existed, and that was exactly how Suman wanted it. By the 3rd week, Vraxian forces were falling apart. They hadn't lost soldiers to combat. They'd lost them to fear. 57 Vraxians were missing. Others refused to patrol alone. Some demanded transfers away from human territory. Commander Rexus called for reinforcements. The humans are deploying some kind of psychological weapon, or perhaps biological agents that cause paranoia. We need specialists. His communication was interrupted. Not by static, not by technical failure, by a voice speaking perfect Vraxian. Commander Rexus, this is Major Suman Choi of Earth Special Forces. Your occupation of our colonies ends now. You will release all prisoners within 24 hours. You will withdraw all military forces from human territory, or we will escalate operations. You cannot threaten us. Rexus roared. We have 600 hostages. We have 3 heavily fortified positions. You are bluffing, am I? Suman's voice was calm. Commander, how many soldiers have you lost? How many systems have failed? How many times have you looked over your shoulder in the last week? Rexus said nothing. We've been inside your bases for 19 days, Suman continued. We know where you sleep, where you eat, where you keep our people. We could have killed you at any time. We chose not to. Consider that our restraint. Who are you? Rexus whispered. We're the humans you should have feared, Suman said. You've met our merchants, our civilians, our colonists. The Galactic Council demanded answers. Not politely, not through diplomatic channels. They demanded. 47 species wanted to know how Earth had performed what appeared to be impossible. The Vraxian Empire was humiliated. Their military infrastructure had been compromised. Their admiral's flagship disabled. 600 prisoners liberated without a single shot being fired that anyone could confirm. Ambassador Hana stood before the council again. This time the atmosphere was different. Not hostile exactly, frightened. Earth will explain these operations, the Supreme Arbiter declared. The galaxy has a right to understand what occurred. Does it? Hana asked mildly. When the Koleth raided human mining stations last year, did they explain their tactics? When the Saurix Dominion tested biological weapons near our space, did we receive explanations? That's different, Counselor Vextar said, though he didn't explain how. Very well, Hana said. Earth will provide transparency. We'll allow observation of a single operation. One council representative may embed with our special forces during an active mission. You'll see exactly what we do and how we do it. The council chamber erupted in multiple languages. Species argued over who would get this unprecedented access. Finally, they selected observer Arix of the Quillith species. Arix was insectoid with a crystalline shell and multiple sensory organs. His species were known for their detailed record-keeping and impartiality. When does this operation occur? Arix asked. Tomorrow, Hana said. The Vraxian Empire is holding 200 human civilians at their fortress on Kresh 9. We're getting them out. Observer Arix can watch every moment. Arix arrived at the staging area expecting an army. The briefing document mentioned 200 hostages held in a fortress with 5,000 Vraxian soldiers. He assumed Earth would send at least a battalion. Maybe two. Commander Jinwoo Park greeted him. Jinwoo was naval intelligence, the coordination officer for this mission. He was tall for a human, with a quiet confidence that reminded Arix of veteran warriors from other species. Thank you for coming, Observer, Jinwoo said. Your safety is guaranteed. You'll have complete access to all mission phases. Where is the assault force? Arix asked, his translator rendering his clicks and chirps into standard galactic. Already deployed, Jinwoo said. He gestured to a holographic display. Ghost Unit is running point. Phantom Team is providing support. Shadow Company is on standby for extraction. How many soldiers total? 17, Jinwoo said calmly. Arix's sensory organs shifted in confusion. 17? For a fortress assault? It's not an assault, Jinwoo corrected. It's a liberation. Assaults are loud. We prefer quiet. The fortress on Kresh 9 was built into a mountain. Natural stone walls supplemented by advanced shields. Automated defense systems. 5,000 Vraxian soldiers. 200 human prisoners held in underground cells. Sergeant Nari Song had been inside the fortress for 3 days. She'd infiltrated during a supply delivery, hiding in a cooling system intake vent that sensors marked as too small for any life form. The sensors were calibrated for Vraxian physiology. Nari lived in the ventilation system. She moved through ducts and crawl spaces that the builders never expected anyone to access. She ate food from her compact rations. She slept in 2-hour intervals. She observed everything. From her hidden positions, she mapped the fortress completely. Guard rotations, patrol patterns, sensor coverage, weak points in their security. Where the prisoners were held, how many guards watched them, what time shifts changed. She compiled this intelligence and transmitted it in compressed bursts that the Vraxians couldn't detect. By the time the operation officially started, Ghost Unit knew more about the fortress than the Vraxians who built it. Observer Arix watched from the command ship. Holographic displays showed the fortress from multiple angles. Satellite imagery, thermal scans, communications intercepts. Your operative has been inside for 3 days? Arix asked. Alone? Nari specializes in infiltration, Jinwoo explained. She once spent 11 days inside a hostile station. This is routine for her. Arix found nothing routine about it. His species had special forces, but they operated in teams. The idea of one soldier spending days inside enemy territory alone, living in walls like a parasite, seemed almost impossible. How does she survive? Training, Jinwoo said simply. And determination. Nari doesn't quit. None of our operators do. The operation began at midnight local time. Lieutenant Hyun Kang approached the fortress from the east. He didn't try to sneak past perimeter sensors. Instead, he waited for a supply transport to arrive, then attached a small device to its hull. The device mimicked the transport's signature, making sensors think the ship was slightly larger than it actually was. Hyun rode under the transport into the fortress. When it landed in the cargo bay, he slipped away while guards checked inventory. Easy, almost boring. Inside, Hyun got to work. He didn't plant bombs. That was amateur work. Instead, he introduced careful malfunctions into the fortress systems. A cooling pump that would overheat. a power relay that would fail after a specific number of cycles, a door lock that would jam at a predetermined time. Each failure was timed, coordinated. When they all went off together, it would look like cascading infrastructure collapse. The fortress would seem to be falling apart on its own. Corporal Taeyang Shin worked from orbit. He'd hacked into a Vraxian communications satellite and used it to piggyback into the fortress's computer network. The Vraxians never suspected an attack from their own infrastructure. Taeyang introduced a virus into their medical monitoring systems. Nothing lethal, nothing dangerous, just false readings that suggested the guards were developing a respiratory infection, fever indicators, cough patterns, fatigue levels rising. Within hours, the fortress medical staff was reporting an outbreak. Soldiers started requesting sick leave. Commanders argued about quarantine procedures. Panic spread not from an actual disease, but from the fear of one. Eric's watched this unfold with growing disbelief. They're not fighting. They're creating chaos. Chaos is a weapon, Jinwoo said. Why fight 5,000 soldiers when you can make them fight themselves? Staff Sergeant Minji Yu lay on a ridge 2 kilometers from the fortress. Her rifle was set up with perfect sight lines to the main entrance. She'd been in position for 6 hours, barely moving. She wasn't there to shoot. Her mission was reconnaissance and overwatch. But if something went wrong, if Ghost Unit needed support, she could eliminate targets with precision that seemed almost supernatural. Through her scope, she watched Vraxian soldiers becoming increasingly agitated. They were checking their weapons constantly, looking at each other suspiciously. The Phantom Plague had them paranoid. Major Suman Choi entered the operation at hour 7. She and 3 operators infiltrated during a shift change, when the gate system was already malfunctioning thanks to Hyun's preparations. Guards were distracted by false alarms and equipment failures. They moved through the fortress like water finding cracks in stone. Every step was calculated. Every movement was silent. They knew where cameras were positioned, where sensors could detect them. Where guards would be looking, they used the Vraxians' own paranoia against them. When a guard turned at the wrong moment, Suman's team was already gone, hidden in shadows that shouldn't have been deep enough to conceal a human body. But darkness was relative, and Ghost Unit had trained in lightless environments until they could navigate by memory and sound alone. The team reached the prisoner holding area. 20 guards on duty, 40 prisoners per cell block, 5 cell blocks total. The prisoners were frightened but unharmed. The Vraxians had treated them relatively well, knowing they were valuable hostages. Suman didn't attack the guards. That would be loud. Instead, she waited. At hour 9, all of Hyun's sabotage triggered simultaneously. Cooling systems failed. Backup generators kicked in, but they'd been programmed to report false errors. Power fluctuated across the fortress. Emergency lights activated. Alert klaxons wailed. Automated systems started emergency protocols, and in the confusion, doors unlocked. Security systems rebooted. Camera feeds went dark for exactly 47 seconds. Ghost Unit moved. Not fighting. Not shooting. Just moving efficiently through chaos that they'd created. They reached the cells, opened them with codes that Taeyang had extracted from the fortress computers, and guided prisoners toward extraction points that Nari had identified days ago. The prisoners followed in stunned silence. A few asked questions. Ghost Unit didn't answer. They just moved, shepherding 200 civilians through a fortress of 5,000 soldiers who were too busy fighting system failures and phantom plagues to notice. Observer Arix watched the thermal imagery. Human heat signatures moving through the fortress. Vraxian signatures scattered and disorganized. At no point did the two groups directly engage. Where are the battles? Arix asked. Where is the combat? There isn't any, Jinwoo said. That's the point. Combat is inefficient. Casualties on both sides. Risk of prisoner harm. Ghost Unit doesn't fight battles. They avoid them entirely. The extraction took 3 hours. 200 prisoners were guided through the fortress to a section of wall that Nari had identified as having a structural weakness. Hyun had placed shaped charges there days ago, disguised as routine maintenance equipment. The Vraxian Grand Council met in emergency session. Their chambers were deep underground, protected by layers of armor and shields. Even here, 3 light years from Earth, they felt vulnerable. Emperor Vrax himself presided. He was ancient by Vraxian standards, nearly 300 years old. with scales that had darkened to deep purple-black with age. He'd ruled through 4 wars and countless conflicts. He'd never known defeat. "The humans have humiliated us," he said, his voice still strong despite his age. "They infiltrated our fortress. They liberated prisoners from under our guard. They made our military appear incompetent to the entire galaxy. This cannot stand." "We underestimated their special forces," Admiral Karvek said. He'd been rescued from his disabled flagship and given new command, though the shame still burned. "We should negotiate, find diplomatic solutions." "No," Vrax said flatly. "Negotiation shows weakness. The galaxy is watching. If we bend to human threats, every species will see us as prey. We respond with overwhelming force. We demonstrate that military might matters more than stealth and tricks. The humans have proven skilled at asymmetric warfare," a counselor cautioned. "Perhaps a direct assault is unwise." "They are skilled at hiding," Vrax corrected. "At running. At avoiding real combat. But they are few. Their territory is small. Earth's home system has defensive installations, yes, but nothing that can withstand a full fleet assault. We will crush their homeworld and show the galaxy that Vraxian power is absolute." The vote was unanimous. The 3rd, 7th, and 9th fleets would combine. 300 warships, the largest military force assembled in Vraxian history. They would jump directly into Earth's solar system and overwhelm its defenses before humanity could deploy their special forces tricks. On Earth, Colonel Do-Yun Lee received intelligence of the Vraxian fleet movement. He stood in a command center buried beneath the mountains of South Korea, watching holographic displays show 300 enemy ships gathering at the edge of Vraxian space. His staff looked worried. 300 warships against Earth's 40-ship defense fleet. The math wasn't favorable. "Sir, do we evacuate?" his executive officer asked. "No," Do-Hyun said calmly. He was 56, with gray hair and a face that rarely showed emotion. He'd been planning this contingency for years. "We defend. Inform Admiral Chen to engage the Vraxian fleet per standard protocols. And activate Protocol Hades." "Sir, Protocol Hades has never been tested in combat." "Then it's time to test it," Do-Hyun said. He began making calls to units that didn't officially exist. Ghost Unit, Phantom Team, Shadow Company, Wraith Squadron, and 6 others. 12 Special Forces teams total. 144 operators. Against 300 warships, it seemed impossible. That was exactly the kind of odds Earth's Special Forces preferred. The Vraxian fleet jumped into Sol system 3 days later. They arrived expecting immediate resistance. Instead, they found Earth's defense fleet waiting at a respectful distance, not attacking, not fleeing. "Just waiting," Emperor Vrax commanded from his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. It was 5 kilometers long, bristling with weapons, protected by shields that could withstand sustained bombardment from a dozen ships. "They're not running," Admiral Karvex observed. "I don't like this." "Their pride exceeds their sense," Vrax said. 40 ships against 300. "They should run." "That they don't merely makes this easier. All ships, attack formation. Target the human homeworld's orbital platforms first." The Vraxian fleet advanced. Earth's defense fleet began firing at maximum range. Energy beams and missiles crossed the vast distances of space. It looked like a conventional battle. The galaxy watched through observation satellites and diplomatic channels, expecting to witness humanity's defeat. What they didn't see were the 12 small ships that had launched from Earth 3 days earlier. They were stealth vessels, coated in materials that absorbed sensor sweeps, running on cold systems that produced minimal heat signatures. Each carried a special forces team. The ships had drifted in the outer solar system waiting. When the Vraxian fleet jumped in, the stealth vessels were already in position, hidden among asteroids and debris fields. Major Suman Choi commanded the operation from inside her stealth ship. Around her, Ghost Unit performed final equipment checks. They wore combat armor designed for zero-gravity insertion, magnetic boots, sealed helmets, weapons that worked in vacuum. "All teams report status," she said into her comm. 11 team leaders checked in, all in position, all ready. "Remember the mission," Suman said. "We don't destroy their ships. We take them. Ghost Unit, we have the flagship. Phantom Team, you have the command carrier. Wraith Squadron takes the battlecruiser. Everyone else, pick your targets from the list. We execute in 60 seconds. Lieutenant Yoon Ji-han worked from Earth's command center monitoring the electronic warfare. She was 29, brilliant with computers, and she'd spent the last week mapping every Varaxian ship's computer network. She'd found their vulnerabilities, their backdoors, the places where human infiltration teams could exploit their systems. "Sir, Vraxian fleet is engaging our defense fleet," she reported to Colonel Doyun. "Projected casualties? 15% losses on our side if we fight conventionally," Yunji said. 70% if we try to hold the line for more than 4 hours. "Then we make sure the battle doesn't last 4 hours," Doyun said. "Signal all teams. Execute Protocol Hades." Ghost Unit launched from their stealth ship in assault pods. The pods were tiny, barely larger than coffins, designed to look like debris on Vraxian sensors. They accelerated toward the Eternal Dominion using minimal thrust, following trajectories that appeared random. Sergeant Nari Song rode in her pod, feeling the familiar calm that came before action. She'd done orbital insertions a dozen times in training, once in real combat. The key was patience. Let the pod do its work. Trust the equipment. Don't panic when you're hurtling through space in a metal box barely large enough to breathe. The pods attached to the Eternal Dominion's hull using magnetic clamps. 8 pods. 8 operators. They cut through the outer armor with plasma torches, breaching into maintenance corridors that the Vraxians rarely checked. Inside the ship, Ghost Unit moved with practiced efficiency. They knew the layout from stolen schematics, knew where they were going, knew what they needed to do. Corporal Taeyang Shin reached a computer access port. He connected his portable hacking system and began the intrusion. The Vraxian computer systems were sophisticated, but they'd been designed to resist external attacks. Nobody had planned for hackers physically inside the ship. Taeyang bypassed security in 6 minutes. He introduced a virus that spread through the ship's network like cancer. It didn't destroy systems. It gave Ghost Unit control of them. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Hyun Kang moved toward engineering. He didn't plan to sabotage anything. Instead, he placed surveillance devices and override controls. When Ghost Unit needed to take engineering, they'd be able to do it remotely. Across the battlefield, 11 other teams performed identical operations. Phantom Team infiltrated the command carrier. Wraith Squadron took a battlecruiser. Shadow Company boarded a troop transport. Each team worked independently but with synchronized timing. Captain Yuna Jang flew her fighter in the conventional battle. She was one of Earth's ace pilots with 17 confirmed kills. But today wasn't about kills. It was about distraction. She led a squadron of 20 fighters in aggressive attack runs, drawing Vraxian attention, making them focus on the visible threat while invisible threats moved through their own ships. "Break right," she called to her wingman. Vraxian point defense lit up space with energy beams. Her fighter jinked and weaved, dodging fire that would have vaporized her ship. "They're getting aggressive." "Perfect. Keep them focused on us." Emperor Vrax watched the battle from his command throne. The humans were fighting well, but they were outnumbered. His fleet was winning, slowly grinding down Earth's defenses. "Victory is inevitable," he declared to his crew. "The humans cannot stand against." Every screen in the command center went dark. Then they flickered back on, showing a human face. Major Suman Choi stared out from every display. "Emperor Vrax," she said calmly. "This is Major Choi of Earth Special Forces. Your ships now belong to us." "Stand down! Impossible!" Vrax roared. "Guards! Find these infiltrators!" "We're already inside your bridge," Suman said. A door behind the command throne opened. Ghost Unit emerged, weapons ready but not firing. "Nobody needs to die today. Order your fleet to stand down." Vrax reached for his personal weapon. Sergeant Nari Song was faster. She'd been positioned for exactly this response. Her shot was precise, non-lethal, hitting the weapon and knocking it from Vrax's hand. "Don't make us kill you," Suman said. "We're not here to conquer. We're here to end this." Across the Vraxian fleet, similar scenes played out. Special Forces teams appeared on 47 different ships. They hadn't destroyed the vessels. They'd taken control. From engineering, from computer cores, from command bridges. Lieutenant Yunji Han's virus activated across the captured ships. Propulsion systems locked. Weapons powered down. Communications were rerouted through Earth's command network. The Vraxian fleet suddenly turned on itself. 47 ships rotated to target their own allies. The message was clear. Surrender or be destroyed by your own vessels. 6 months passed. The galaxy changed in ways subtle and profound. Human merchant ships no longer faced harassment at checkpoints. Trade disputes were settled through negotiation rather than intimidation. Species that had viewed humanity as upstart newcomers suddenly treated Earth with careful respect. The Galactic Council chamber had been rebuilt. The previous structure had been damaged in a meteorite strike 3 years prior, but reconstruction had been delayed by bureaucratic disputes. Humanity offered to help. Within 4 months, the new chamber stood complete. Larger than before, more efficient. With technology that worked better than the original, that was becoming a pattern. Humans helped. They built. They improved. And somehow everything they touched became more effective, not through conquest or replacement, but through integration and enhancement. Ambassador Hannah Park stood before the new council. Today's session was historic. The formal vote on Earth's petition for permanent council membership. Once such a vote would have been controversial. Now it passed with 43 species in favor, 3 abstaining, and only 1 opposed. Earth is recognized as a permanent member of the Galactic Council, the Supreme Arbiter declared, with all rights, responsibilities, and privileges thereof. Councillor Vextar approached Hannah after the session. The reptilian diplomat who had once argued for containing humanity now extended a claw in the human gesture of handshake. "Congratulations, Ambassador," he said. His translator rendered grudging respect. "I was wrong about your species. I thought you were dangerous predators. I see now that you're simply survivors who refuse to be prey." "We can be both," Hannah said, shaking his claw gently. "Dangerous and peaceful, predator and protector. It depends entirely on how we're treated." "Your special forces," Vextar said quietly. "The Council wishes to discuss them. Not to limit them, to learn from them." That was the other change. Species across the galaxy had realized their military forces were obsolete. They'd spent centuries building bigger ships, stronger weapons, larger armies. Humanity had shown that intelligence and skill mattered more than size. Colonel Do Yun Lee stood in a lecture hall on Earth's moon. Before him sat 200 students. Not human students. These were soldiers from 37 different species. Insectoids, reptilians, aquatics in mobile water tanks. Crystalline beings. Mammals from a dozen different worlds they'd come to learn. To understand how humanity fought. To train in methods that seemed impossible until demonstrated. "Welcome to the Joint Special Operations School," Do-hyun said. "You're here because your governments recognize that warfare is changing. Size no longer guarantees victory. Technology alone isn't enough. You need soldiers who can think, adapt, overcome obstacles that seem insurmountable." A Vraxian officer raised his hand. "Colonel, no disrespect intended, but humans are small, weaker than many species. How do you compensate?" "We don't compensate," Do-hyun said. "We capitalize. Our size lets us fit places you can't. Our physiology lets us survive in extreme conditions. Our culture teaches us to view problems as puzzles rather than barriers. We're not stronger. We're smarter, and we work harder." Major Sumin Choi taught the next class. Infiltration tactics. Her students watched as Sergeant Nari Song demonstrated how to live in a hostile environment for extended periods. Nari had set up a simulation. A mock enemy base with sensors, guards, and security systems. For 3 days, she'd lived inside it. The students had watched via hidden cameras. They'd seen her survive in ventilation shafts, ration her food and water, learn patrol patterns, identify weak points. "Infiltration isn't about fighting," Suman explained. "It's about patience. You watch, you learn, you wait for the perfect moment. Then you move." A Sorix officer looked skeptical. "My species are cold-blooded. We need heat lamps, external temperature regulation. How can we hide in ventilation ducts?" "Then you don't hide in ducts," Suman said simply. "You find different hiding places. Every environment has blind spots. Every security system has gaps. Your job is finding them. We'll teach you how to think like an infiltrator. The specific techniques vary by species, but the mindset is universal." Lieutenant Hyun Kang taught demolitions and sabotage, not the obvious kind. The subtle kind that made enemy infrastructure collapse from within. "Big explosions are satisfying," Hyun told his class. "But they're also loud, obvious. They alert your enemy. Instead, think about cascading failures. One small malfunction that causes another. A cooling system breaks, so generators overheat. That triggers automatic shutdowns, which causes backup systems to activate, which overloads power distribution." He demonstrated with a mock facility. One tiny explosive charge placed precisely led to a chain reaction that disabled the entire complex. And to outside observers, it looked like equipment failure rather than sabotage. A Delphon officer floating in his water tank clicked a question. This seems deceptive, dishonorable. Honor doesn't protect lives, Hyun said. Results do. If I can disable an enemy facility without firing a shot, without killing anyone, that's better than a frontal assault that costs lives on both sides. You can call it dishonorable if you want. I call it effective. Corporal Taiyang Shin taught cyber warfare and electronic infiltration. His students struggled with the concept at first. Many species relied on air-gapped computer systems, assuming isolation meant security. Nothing is truly isolated, Taeyang explained. He demonstrated by hacking into a supposedly secure system through its automated maintenance diagnostics. Isolation is an illusion. Everything connects to something. Power sources, cooling systems, user interfaces. Find the connection, exploit the vulnerability. Staff Sergeant Minji Yu taught advanced marksmanship and reconnaissance. She took students to a firing range and demonstrated shots that seemed impossible. 2-kilometer targets in crosswind, moving targets at extreme range, precision shooting through obstacles. Marksmanship isn't about raw skill, she explained. It's about preparation. I study wind patterns, temperature gradients, target movement algorithms. By the time I pull the trigger, the shot is already successful. The bullet just confirms what I've already calculated. But the most important lessons happened outside formal classes, in the cafeteria, during downtime, when students from different species talked with human instructors and learned not just tactics but philosophy. Captain Junho Kim visited the school to give a guest lecture. He wasn't military, just a merchant captain who defended his ship against a blockade, but his story resonated. I'm not a warrior, he told the students. I'm a trader. I just want to haul cargo and make a living. But the galaxy tried to make me a victim, tried to extort me, threaten my crew. So I adapted. I armed my ship. I learned tactics. I refused to be prey. A young Kolith officer asked the obvious question, but wasn't that dangerous? Provoking military vessels? More dangerous to surrender, Junho said. My ancestors came from a world that tried to kill them every day. Predators, weather, disease. They survived because they fought back. Because they adapted, because they refused to accept that they were weak. I carry that in my genes. In my culture, I'm not special. I'm just human, and humans don't give up. Ambassador Hana attended a private dinner with key council members. The conversation was frank in a way diplomatic sessions never allowed. Your species frightens us, Counselor Methrin admitted. Her translucent body rippled with emotion. You're so capable, so determined. We worry about the future. What if humanity decides might makes right? What if you become conquerors? We won't, Hana said simply. How can you be certain? Because conquest is inefficient, Hana explained. We've run the numbers. The resources required to subjugate even one species would bankrupt our economy for generations. The political complications would be endless. The ethical cost would tear our society apart. And for what? Territory we don't need? Resources we can trade for? Conquest is expensive, messy, and ultimately pointless. So you're practical, not moral? Fexter asked. We're both, Hana said. We believe conquest is wrong. But even if we didn't, we're too practical to attempt it. Cooperation is more profitable than domination. Trade builds more wealth than theft. Allies are more valuable than subjects. She paused, sipping water. Besides, our special forces have shown you something important. We can infiltrate. We can sabotage. We can disable fleets and fortresses. But notice what we don't do. We don't occupy. We don't enslave. We don't conquer. We defend our people, complete our mission, and leave. That's not because we can't do more. It's because we choose not to. The dinner ended with tentative hope. The galaxy was learning to trust humanity, slowly, carefully. But trust was growing. The Joint Special Operations School graduated its first class 6 months later. 200 soldiers from 37 species trained in human methods. They weren't human. Never would be. But they'd learned to think differently, to see problems as opportunities, to adapt rather than simply applying overwhelming force. Major Suman Choi gave the graduation address. She stood before a diverse crowd of beings who, 6 months ago, couldn't have imagined learning from humans. You came here as specialists in your species' tactics, she said. You leave as something more. Not human, not superhuman, just better soldiers. Better thinkers. Better protectors, she paused. Someone asked me yesterday what makes humans special.